So excited that you are here, and whether you are watching live or you have discovered that you can watch these on demand when it fits your time, we are delighted that you're here for this conversation. In this episode of Simply Sarah, we're going to have a conversation with Haley Navarro. She has this incredible heart of somebody who has been doing business since she was in, I think, like junior high, and has such a heart for people and for them to be able to see where they are in their lives right now in order for them to have a better, more purposeful life. And I know this firsthand because not only have I worked with Haley firsthand, but also I brought her in for an event that I have done as well. So I'm going to bring Haley in. And Haley, we are just so delighted that you are here and would love for you to share a little bit of your story about how you got to where you are now, friend.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you again for having me on. I'm so excited to be here. And how did I get here? Sometimes, honestly, I ask myself the same question. How did I get here? And I think with what's coming to me right now is just I think we're all intuitive beings, whether we know it or don't know it consciously yet. But I've always been tapped in, and we can go into that a little bit more. But I think I've just always listened to the little nudges, and sometimes I don't listen, but then they get louder, right? And so I really believe that I'm just listening to my purpose and why I'm supposed to be here. Sometimes I don't agree with it always, but had to learn through those the hard way. I just listen now.
Yes, it's part of the journey. And it really is a language, right? In terms of how spirit speaks to us or how we hear these pieces that are coming in, and to be able to turn up the volume a little bit, maybe clarify the station a little bit as well using old terminology, but yet just kind of coming in a little bit more on that. I would love for you to share what your first entrance into business was, and then part of that story of you are a multiple business owner, and so the different things that you do, and that you've continued to hone the crafts that you began in the very, very beginning. So I'd love for you to share a little bit of that for our listeners, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say my first business, I didn't even realize was a business. I went part-time high school, part-time cosmetology school my senior year. I was actually 15 when I started cosmetology school. I had to beg to let them in, to let me in, because you had to technically be 16. and the semester, I guess, what we would call it, I don't know what would the session, whatever that was, it was starting, and my birthday was after that date, and they at first denied me, and this is where the grit comes in. And I went to the school, I eye to eye contact. I was like, hey, this is what I want to do. Please let me in. And he was like, I have to think about it. I have to make sure everything's okay with the board, and you might need a permit. I didn't need a permit, but they let me in a few months early, which I was thankful for because it only got my whole process started so much faster. So like I said, I went to high school part-time, and then in the evenings, I did cosmetology school. And then my real first start was after cosmetology school, right? I then went into the salon that my teacher worked at, and then I worked for him. I swept hair, I shampooed clients, I, got people drinks, picked up towel, just major stuff that, like, when you walk into a salon, you don't know it takes a lot of work to actually run the salon. And so that's what I did. I was 16 when I did that. I was going to high school, cosmetology school, and working. So I had a very busy senior year. But by the time I graduated, I had already started to build somewhat of a clientele. He let me cut clients completely after hours and just practice a little bit more. And so I first stepped into entrepreneurship when I was about 17 years old, because it's just, I didn't even realize that's what I was doing. The salon that I was at was not a commission-based salon, so everything that you did was yours. And so, yeah, that's how I got started into entrepreneurship.
So I'm just thinking a little bit about this. You are starting your senior year of high school, if I'm understanding this correctly, at about 15 into 16. So you graduated really what we would consider in American standards really quite young. So did you skip grades along the way, or was this just something that was easy for you to do because, and you were just looking for something else to add on? Or did you have a dream of finishing up quickly and then going on to a big production place to do hair or something like that?
Absolutely. So yes, my first 2 years, I went to a private school most of my life. My first 2 years, I started at private school, and so I was taking. I think we had an extra class more than other schools did, and so that only contributed to extra credits. And so when I transferred my last 2 years out of that high school because I needed a change, I had all of these credits. So my senior year, I only needed one English class, which I wanted to take in the summertime
Yes.
and not have a senior year. But my mom was like, it's a senior year. It's going to be the best year of your life, all these things. So my mom did not let me graduate early. I wanted to move to LA at 16. Like, I am from Northern California. I knew I wanted to be a makeup artist. I wanted to do makeup for the stars and work on productions and do all of these things. So actually, my mom, with that in mind, my mom always had this like hustler mentality in my mind, like, well, I'm not going to pay for that. So I don't know how you're going to live without money. Hence the job, hence the hard work. My mom made me save X amount of dollars before I moved, which she actually matched, but she didn't tell me until I moved. So that was a real blessing in disguise. But yeah, so I had, my mom made sure that I was going to be okay for the most part, very privileged. If anything were to happen, I was always had a safety net, still do to this day, back at my mom's house. But yeah, did that answer your question?
It absolutely did. And then this whole beautiful idea of being able to go out on your own and be adventurous at 16 and take on the world, is that something that was instilled in you? Is it because of your personality? Is it because of what your parents did? Is it because of the schools that you went to that you had such an understanding of what was driving you forward?
Yeah, well, I actually didn't leave when I was 16. I left when I was 20. So I had a good 2.5, 3 years to save, which I didn't have to pay for rent or anything. I lived like a child because I was still a teenager, right? But oh my goodness, this happens to me often. Sarah, I just blew a drink. I just drew a blank.
It happened because other information's coming in as you were speaking this information. So did you have this dream of entrepreneurship, or were there people who were speaking it into your life?
My mom has always had a business. My mom has an in-home daycare. And so I saw her working for herself her whole life. And so I kind of was ingrained with that. When I was in the salon and when I moved, she was like, you're going to have a real, what is it called? Like a reality check when you work for somebody else. You're going to be in for a rude awakening. Those are her exact words. It was, you're going to be in for a rude awakening, Haley. And when I moved to LA and I worked for Sassoon in Beverly Hills, it was a rude awakening. I have to clock in. What does that even mean? I only have an hour for lunch at a certain time. I'm not hungry. Like, why am I doing those things? So yes, I believe that I got entrepreneurship and like values from my mother.
And so as you were applying for this, say it for me again, this is
Sassoon.
Thank you.
Vidal Sassoon. Mm-hmm.
Yes, in Beverly Hills. Were you anxious about that process? Were you concerned? Did you feel well prepared? Were there sleepless nights?
I totally have a story for you on this one.
I'm ready.
So once I started hair school, again, 15 years old, vision board status, although I didn't make a vision board because I probably didn't know what it was, but like that was a goal of mine. I never actually thought I would step foot in a Sassoon salon. So to say that I worked at the Beverly Hills salon for 5 years, one of my biggest goals I've ever been to accomplish in my life. So to answer your question, when I moved here, I went to the school in Santa Monica because, again, I didn't believe that I was ever going to be able to work at the salon. So I paid for education. I decided to go there for 2 months. I wanted to do the 6-week cutting course and like the 2-week color course. I don't know what it was, but I was there for 2 months. And it was every day. It was like a 9-to-5 thing. And I was just having these conversations with my teachers that I would really, and like, that would be a dream. I would love to do that. And so again, I followed the hit, I followed the intuition. And we had what was her title? She was the creative director in San Francisco. So she was very high up there. And she was doing like a guest teacher that day. And I just went up to her and had a conversation with her and said, I really want to work in the Beverly Hills salon. How do you recommend I go about doing that? And she said, let me make a call. She walked away, made a call, and was like, can you get there by 2? I'm just throwing out a time. I don't know what time it was. But that same day, she was like, do you think you can get there in about an hour or something? And myself said, I have to ask my teacher if I can leave. And she was like, what are you even talking about? Just go now. And so I went there, didn't even have an interview. And based on her recommendation, I got the job on the spot.
Incredible. So at the Sassoon salon for 5 years, based on you following this intuitive hit of, let me just have a conversation with the person. The person picks up a phone, makes a phone call, and then you are in your car on your way, not looking back, hired in that particular place. That is a remarkable story. Haley, we have more remarkable stories to share with the audience. We're going to do a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Sevilla, your host of Pivot Now. Join us on E360 TV every Tuesdays, 10 a.m. Pacific Time, 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Pivot Now.
If you're looking for an author, speaker, and confidence coach who is passionate about helping entrepreneurs and leaders improve their presence and confidence so they can reach the success they desire faster, meet Vanessa Raymond.
I'm Vanessa Raymond. I am an author, a speaker, a multiple business owner, and a confidence coach. I come from a very physical background. A lot of the time, we feel like we have more control over our physical body than we do over our mental, emotional. So I like to come from the outside in.
Vanessa will help you achieve unstoppable confidence through the art of powerful posture, positive body language, and dynamic vocal image, which are tools to energetically and physically show up as the very best version of yourself so you can create meaningful relationships in business and in life.
If you are ready to elevate your game, sign up for your free consultation. Act it, feel it, be it.
For more information or to schedule a consultation, contact Vanessa at www.victoryfactor.com.
I know that you are loving this conversation just like I am. Can you believe that she goes up to a teacher, Haley goes up to a teacher and says, my dream is to work at the Sicilian salon and that's what I want to do. And the person makes a phone call and makes it happen. And she goes that afternoon. She has more stories to share about how she continues to follow these intuitive hits in her life. So Haley, tell us a little bit more, because you are not just in cosmetology, don't just do hair, because you've continued to keep those pieces going. But the way that I was introduced to you was through an incredible healing practice. And so how did you get from that salon with that incredible group of people who are working together? How did you decide to make the change and leave that? I'm certain it has to do with another energetic hit.
Well, yes. So I had a point in my life where one of my cousins had passed away suddenly. It was a complete accident. He was in his early 20s, and that rocked my world. And so after that happened, I literally began to question everything. If I was happy, if this is really what I wanted to do, is this where I want to be in my life? And I kind of like tossed it all up in the air and I saw what stick. I ended up moving from that salon. I went to a different salon just down the street, same in Beverly Hills. And I worked there for another couple of years. And then I decided that I don't want to work for somebody else anymore. And I had been thinking about that before I left Sassoon, but I was scared, right? I was too scared, and I needed to like allow myself to, and depending on who you're talking to, like some people will say do it scared. I'm not that type of person. Like I needed to feel somewhat comfortable in order to move, because that's a big step. And so I planned for another year. I set goals, and then I was just going to not work in a salon anymore and keep my clients and only do house calls. So that is something that I still do now in Los Angeles. I only take house calls. I go to my clients' homes. I get to know my clients on a deeper level. I know their families. I end up cutting their families. Sometimes it becomes one big party. So that's been great. And then everybody that I was meeting, so kind of rewind for a little bit on a different story. And I talk all over the place, and that's probably why I forget my thoughts sometimes, but probably a good 12 years ago, my mom was introduced to Reiki, and she decided to do this Reiki training. And then she did Reiki on me, and we can go into that. But I was kind of like, okay, Mom, you're a little weird. I don't know how I feel about this. Not so much. And then about 5 years after that, everybody that I was meeting is either Reiki trained or loves Reiki. And I just didn't really understand it. It wasn't something that I was open to yet. And then the pandemic hit, and we were all sitting at home, scared, not knowing what to do. And I was driving. And like I said in the very beginning of this interview, I've always been intuitive. I've always been connected. I heard a voice, and it just said, it's time. And I knew exactly what that meant. And I called a friend who led me to you, and here we are.
It's truly an amazing thing, because you're not the first person to share a story that's like that, about the number of people who are showing up in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to be alone and just kind of processing and just doing right, allowing the brain to see the lanes and make all the decisions and being safe driving. But there's this real quiet part that can happen if you've been driving an area a long time. And in those quiet places, sometimes this information can come forward. And it can truly be remarkable what happens and how it happens in that space. And I think also one of the things that's so beautiful about your story, Haley, is that you have been open, you have been listening, and you have been discerning.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate you talking about how some people say do it scared. And for me, there's a level of I need to be able to show up as I'm doing it. And if I am not breathing through this, there's not much of me. Maybe my body's there, but that's about it. And so that being able to breathe and come into this space, brings us to the next conversation I'd love for you to share, which is talking about breath work, because I have invited you. You've come to a group that was meeting frequently, and you came and you were our guest person to share a tool with all of us. And it was remarkable for those of us who had done breath work with you before, but also to watch people as you were talking to them afterwards who had never done any of it, and just to watch the peacefulness on their face after spending, I don't know, 20 minutes or so perhaps with you leading. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about breathwork, because when I first heard those words, I thought, all of us breathe, right? But yet it's something different when you do it.
Yes. Oh, I love that you say that, because breathwork is breathing, and it's a huge umbrella term for different types of breath, right? There's alternate nostril breathing, there's box breathing, there's all types of different breathing, and everybody practices differently. I was introduced to transformational breathwork in 2019 at a business conference for women. There was 1,500 women at this conference in San Diego, and the speaker led us through breathwork, and I had no idea what was happening. I didn't really even listen to like the setup or the instructions. I just started breathing. So imagine just jumping into the breath. I do remember setting the intention that I wanted to learn how to forgive. And at that time, I had just had a falling out, not just, but I had a falling out with a friend, and it was very hard for me to learn how to get over it. It had been a couple of years. That's why I said not just. But every time I saw her, we had mutual friends. So anytime I saw her photo on Instagram or Facebook, or anybody who had mentioned her or said her name, it felt like a gut punch, because I was still hanging on to this friendship. I hadn't been able to let it go. And so everybody was telling me I needed to learn how to forgive. And so that was my intention for the breathwork practice in 2019. And again, I didn't really know what breathwork, I had no idea what breathwork was before that, didn't really listen to the setup. But as I'm breathing with this intention to learn how to forgive, it felt like 3 minutes. Now, when you're breathing like this, there is no time, right? We don't know how long we're actually in it. But it felt like it happened very fast. And I like to say it as like I had this like comic book bubble pop up right around this area on my right. And I saw this friend and myself, and we were face to face, and we had the opportunity to forgive each other in that moment in my breathwork practice. And it was beautiful, and it was ugly crying and snotty. But after that practice, I was like, oh, I just felt so relieved. Like I was finally able to do it. And so I was like, okay, there's something here that I need to learn more about. Well, the next day, Sarah, I decided to leave early because it's in San Diego. I thought it ended at noon. It ended at 6. And I was like, I'm not going to sit in that traffic back home to LA. So I decided to leave at the halfway point at lunchtime. And as I'm walking out of the door, there's 1,500 women at this event, Sarah. As I'm walking out of the door, the friend that I was trying to forgive was walking to me in the same manner that happened in my little, I'm going to say, premonition. And in that moment, I started shaking, right? I didn't know what to do, but I knew like I'd already done this before, just not physically. And so I walked up to her. We were both crying. I don't remember how it all really went down, but I knew that I was like able to do it, not only spiritually on a different timeline, but also in person. Totally rocked my world. And after that event, I knew that I was going to do breath work, but I needed to sit with it. Again, I need to discern it and practice a little bit more. And so that was my first introduction to breathwork. And then I was Reiki trained. And then I was like, I couldn't get breathwork off my mind because it was such a powerful experience that I wanted to learn that too. And so now I lead breathwork events in person and online, and it's a beautiful tool.
It really is a beautiful tool. And I'll just share my first experience with Haley as we were doing this, and we were laughing about this earlier this week, that I was saying to her, I feel like I'm having a hard time breathing. And, and she was very, very calm and just kept walking me through it. It didn't phase her. She just kept going. And she just allowed me, rather than stopping and saying, let's have a conversation about it, she allowed me to feel those feelings. And then at some point, my lips got super like, I don't know, they just felt
Tingly.
tingly. There we go. Let's go with that. They felt so different. And I was like, my lips are tingly. And she just kept me going. And then at the end, just to be able to feel and be inside of my being was truly an amazing experience. And one of the reasons that I continue to reach out to you for us to work together, because of that. And it's not just about what's happening in my own body. I guess I'm giving a little testimonial here, but also it's about other places. And so when I am in this space and I am doing the work, sometimes other places come up that are asking to be cleared or asking to be purified, or put the word in there, uplifted, whatever that looks like for you. And to be able to easily, because time and space are very, very much human experiences. Spirit doesn't live on either one of those. And so I think that when we are able to move to these places where we are listening differently, that we are also able then to be able to see in our own lives places and things that perhaps we can be releasing or working on as well. We're going to be right back. We're going to take another commercial break. We have more conversation with Haley Navarro.
We've been on a SIA and been telling everyone about it since about 5 months ago. Right away, my body experienced a mini detox. I experienced full, deep nights of sleep till this day. Hair growth, if you might have before, as well as physical stamina.
I can testify to that. I use my brain a lot, and I've noticed an increase in mental clarity and mental stamina.
That's so true. And our skin feels the healthiest it's ever been, guys. And to be honest with you, we do feel younger, and we're getting so many compliments. So I'm happy to chat with anyone who wants to learn more about ASEA. Feel free to book a 30-minute call with me. See you soon.
We are having a conversation with Haley Navarro, and she has shared absolutely amazing places and times, stories I've never heard, of where Spirit has just spoken to her, and she has heard and she has followed that. And she's also shared with us that she's not somebody who jumps into things quickly. She is somebody who also longs for discernment and to be in that place of listening and choosing when the right time really is in that. And so, Haley, I would love for you to share. So many in our audience are entrepreneurs, but not everybody is. There are some who have really serious health issues. What is one tool that you would encourage people to do that they can be practicing on their own that would help them to be able to feel better inside of their being?
So I love this because I'm going to give the probably answer that nobody else has ever given before. And it's to follow your joy. And I know that sounds, my coach hates when I say this. It sounds fluffy and not tangible, right? But I truly believe, and I've experienced it myself, that when you start to do more of the things that you love, everything in your life raises, right? Your health raises, your capacity for everything raises. In entrepreneurship, your money raises. I've witnessed that one firsthand too. And so I don't know if that's the answer anybody was looking for. And sometimes we can go a little bit more into this too about joy, but like, I really believe that is the special sauce that we forget about.
I just so agree with you on so many different levels. Yesterday was a friend's birthday, and as I was sending her a text and just kind of thinking through how I come to know her and what she stands for, represents in my life, and just wanting to find words of expansion for this next year for her, the word joy came up. And so I put that in there in all caps and continued on and just thought that's an interesting word to be using there. Her immediate response to me was, Sarah, I have so many people who are talking about joy in terms of my life. And she is somebody that I think is very joyous, is somebody who's seeking those kinds of things. But again, it's that word. And I love how you talk about people not necessarily liking the verbiage that you are using, and yet you're not pushing it aside because you know that when you follow your joy, that all of these beautiful other things are happening. So when you are following your joy, Haley, can you share a little bit more for people about what it feels like for you? Now, I fully understand that all of us are individuals, and so we may or may not have the exact same experience, but I find verbiage to be so incredibly helpful for as I'm learning new practices, just to be able to find different ways of looking at something. So I think of joyous as being kind of a bubbly kind of a thing, but I'm not sure that I would use that if I was following my joy in terms of following my purpose. So I would love
Mhm.
to share a little bit more, friend.
Yeah, I actually went on a whole journey of figuring out what brought me joy, and it took me quite a while. And in 2020, I launched a podcast called The Unfiltered Soul, and I actually had somebody, her name is Kyle Moss. Um, there's another Kyle Leader Moss, I want to say it is. But she was a joy coach, and I brought her on the podcast because I was like, I love everything that you're talking about, but I don't know anything about, like, I'm having a hard time understanding joy. So if you're listening and you're watching right now and you're like, I don't know what this is, you are not alone. It is something I had to figure out for myself. And it really is simple. And I think that's where a lot of us get so um, confused, right? When things are too simple, we have a hard time grasping them and understanding them. And so I'll just give you a few examples of what joy looks like for me. And then I'll give you an example that is coming to mind that Kyle shared with me. And I was like, oh, okay. So joy for me, and this is actually a practice that I do every morning. I just did this afternoon because I was feeling tired and lethargic. And so I was like, what would bring me joy today? So I do that every morning. And I love when it's like overcast, which it has been for the last couple of days. I love when it's overcast. I love a hot cup of coffee, and I love to read in the morning. And I find so much joy in that. I find so much joy in doing yoga. I find so much joy in being outside and doing activities outside. And I would say the most joy that I experience is when I am with people that I love, friends, family, nieces and nephews, all of that. It's what brings me the most joy, and I'm the happiest. Um, an example that I loved that Kyle shared with me was that she loves brownies, and sometimes you don't want to always eat all the brownies. So she'll make a batch of brownies and give half of them to somebody that she loves. And it's just the gift of sharing brings her joy. So it could look like rollerblading. It could look like taking a nap. It could look like working, right? But you have to ask yourself those questions and try it out. I went through a trial of experimenting and trying new things because, again, I didn't know what brought me joy, and I had to try things, and I was like, that is definitely not it. but I'm going to keep doing the things that I really do enjoy.
Yes. And I really appreciate that you are talking about this trial and error place. I think that it's such an important thing, not only as entrepreneurs, but as people who are looking to better our lives, looking for the tools that help us be able to navigate things that may be brand new to us or things that we have gone through decades ago. And now we know that we have other tools, but yet the old way of reacting is still kind of showing up. To be able in those spaces to say, I am creative. As a creative being, I can begin to listen to how things are and listen to them differently and be on this curiosity quest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that place, then to start to find. I found that for myself, things that I really enjoyed in my 20s, some of them I still find to be vibrant and wonderful and just so fresh and new now that I'm in my 50s. And there were other things that I was like, oh, don't ever need to do that again.
Yeah.
It's also okay to allow these lists, these things to be evolving and changing. And part of that is because we have evolved and changed, and to be
Absolutely.
inside of that, to be okay with those pieces that go along with that.
Yes.
Go ahead. You want to share anything else?
Oh,
about
no,
Julia?
I just said, yes, I agree everything with what you're saying.
Beautiful. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to ask Kaylee what is it she's working on right now, because she has a lot of things that she's doing. And we'll be right back after this commercial break.
Reiki meditations have been an incredibly powerful tool in helping me manage my stress and anxiety. As someone who is constantly on the go, I tend to find myself easily overwhelmed and consumed in thought. By spending a few minutes with myself each day practicing these meditations, I'm able to find peace, clarity, and focus into my day. Sarah's guidance, instruction, and technique have continued to help me build on the effectiveness of these meditations. I am so grateful that I have such a powerful tool to use in helping manage my stress.
And so it was through learning the principles and practices of Reiki that I was able to, for the first time in my life, regulate my nervous system on my own. Reiki can be a protocol that significantly decreases the pain that someone is experiencing in their body. So I'm incredibly grateful to Sarah Stockham for being a teacher in our community and introducing this beautiful medicine to so many people.
I'm Sarah Stockham, and I'm excited to offer approved continuing education through Effective Reiki Methods Level 1 and 2 course to dentists practicing in America. With over a decade of teaching Reiki to medical doctors, coaches, PhDs, psychologists, and law students, I know you will find learning Reiki applicable to your business or line of work, and also personally. The National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine shares Reiki is a complementary health practice in which practitioners place their hands lightly on or just above the person with the goal of facilitating the person's own healing response. Reiki, because it is healing energy, can be done in person or at a distance and is effectively used to increase a sense of calm and reduce anxiety in hospitals, like the internationally renowned hospital in Pasadena, California. This foundational, effective Reiki method course covers levels 1 and 2, the how-to of both in-person Reiki and distance Reiki, plus best practices. Once you have successfully completed the Effective Reiki Method Level 1 and 2 course, you can also request continuing education credits that come from CE Approved, which is an approved AGD PACE provider.
We're having a fabulous conversation with Haley Navarro, and the next question is about what is she working on right now, and what is it that is bringing her joy? What would that be, friend?
Oh, Sarah. What am I not working on right now?
A lot going on, and I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. So I always have monthly group breathwork hosted in person and online. So that's kind of always a thing that I'm always doing. I run about 2 to 3 groups. So that's like a well-oiled machine by now. And then I am offering my first level 1 and 2 Reiki training at the beginning of May. So excited about that. And then I am actually also helping future healers, coaches, entrepreneurs. I have a signature program called the Healed Healer. So anybody who is an entrepreneur or a coach or a healer who might have already started their business or wants to start their business, but is struggling with the limiting beliefs and the imposter syndrome and anxiety and or depression and trying to get out of that current cycle that they're in so they can actually gain new clients, actually make money. That's what the Healed Healer is about.
So very exciting. And in this space, what are you investigating, working on, curiously questing in terms of joy? Are you trying a new outdoor adventure? Are you looking for new places to go hiking? What is it for you that that you're willing to share online? I should put that on there as well. Share on a show. Go ahead.
I am on this quest of what brings me joy, something new. Like I said earlier, I had that question pop up for me this afternoon. And so there it is again, right? Listening to those intuitive hits. I have not been outside lately because of the weather and the rain. So that has definitely played a part in joy. But, I am still actively finding a new way of joy. And I think that will be through cooking. I love cooking and I haven't done that in a very long time. And so I just got a new cookbook. And I'm really thinking that's where joy is going to start coming from today, because I am going to make some dinner tonight.
Beautiful. That sounds wonderful. And I know for me, something that I had just been looking for, just a respite at the end of the day to be able to kind of quiet my mind and pull myself into a whole different place. And as a child, my mom used to read out loud to us. And then as we traveled, we'd be in the van and one of the sisters would start reading a book, right? And so we had James Harriet's All Things Wise and Wonderful, All Creatures Great and Small. We had the whole series. And I don't have the first book right now. I just have the second. But I am finding myself on airplanes at night trying to not burst into laughter with the stories as he just tells these incredible stories of being a vet, for several years of being a vet in the English countryside and all these different things that happen. And he has such a beautiful way with words. And so for me, one of the places that I'm finding joy is going back to something that I had heard as a child but had completely forgotten the stories. You had shared, as we had talked a couple days ago, about an experience that somebody had doing breath work. And it was a group breath work. And I would, if you would be willing to share that story, I would love to hear it and love to hear the end of it as well.
Yes. So there's a ton of stories, Sarah. Was I think if I'm remembering correctly, it was the gentleman who was on his side.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So husband and wife come to breathe. And I like when anybody comes together, I have this thing that I invite them to separate. Some people take me up on that invitation, some don't. They did. And so opposite ends of the room. And I like to do this because sometimes we need to break that attachment. And then also privacy. I know when I've practiced breath work with my mom led by somebody else, I was right next to her, which I'm already a facilitator and like I knew I should have gone away. Anyway, I was so worried about my mom. And so I didn't actually get to practice. So being able to separate encourages privacy. And, sometimes you could just let go a little bit more when you're not hearing your partner breathe. And so end of the session, everybody's kind of mingling, everybody's up and talking, community. And this gentleman is still on the floor. He's on his side. He's just looks comfortable and cozy. And his wife comes up to me and she's like, "Hey, I need you to go check on my husband. He hasn't gotten up. I'm a little worried about him." I'm like, I look over and I'm like, he looks extremely peaceful right now. I know he's fine. I know he's in this integration period. I'm going to give him a couple more minutes and then I'll go check on him. And so I did. And I sat down next to him and I probably rubbed his back or something, just a gentle touch, just to not startle him. And I asked him if he was okay. And he's like, I am so good. I'm enjoying this position that I'm laying down in because I haven't been able to lay down like this or turn my head this way in years. And I released so much. I can now move my neck and I'm not in pain laying on my side. And so I'm just making up for lost time, but I'm okay. And I was like, that's incredible. I hear stories like that all the time of how people come in with pain and by the end of the session, they've been able to release so much energy and emotion or repressed memories, repressed emotions that their pain is gone. And so I hear it's quite common when people leave breathwork.
You talked about integration, Haley. What are some of the ways that you encourage people to integrate after they have had a healing session, whether that happens to be talk therapy or they have been journaling and come to this new aha about what they need to let go of or work on or whatever that happens to be, or they've just had a conversation with someone that they care deeply about and they're realizing that they need to see the world perhaps through different eyes. And so they're integrating this new way. What is something that ways that you would encourage people to integrate or consider?
So I'll speak from myself, right? Because I can't speak, I can just make recommendations based on what I actually do. I actually love to pause. And I know the world is constantly go, go, go. And I think that's why so much pain and suffering is actually happening in this world, is because we're not stopping. And so I like to pause daily. Before I actually get out of bed, I check in with myself. Before I go to sleep, I check in myself. That looks differently every day. Sometimes I'm so just laying there with my eyes closed and just mentally tapping in. How does my body feel? How does my breath feel? Am I experiencing pain? What are my emotions? Sometimes it's a full-blown Reiki hands all over my body. But I really think is just checking in with myself and noticing what's happening in your body. Your body is going to tell you so much. And your breath's going to tell you a lot. Your palms, if they get sweat, it's all information. And I think my favorite part, or what I really geek out on, is that you don't have to do anything with that information.
Right.
But to acknowledge it, right? I hear so many people like, if you feel this way, do this. And it's like, no, let's just acknowledge it first and sit with it.
Yes.
With, again, discernment, we don't have to do anything.
Yes.
So that it would be my first thing. I love getting outside. I wish I had a yard to be able to put my feet in and just connect that way. But I also love like a shower meditation, or just awareness as I'm taking a shower, how hot it feels on my body, or how cold, like what is the temperature, and how, like, just observing my space in my shower. And then again, processing and allowing my body and my mind just to see and to feel the actual water wash down over me and like let it go down the drain. That's something that I do not every day, but after all practices, after I'm with a client or in a group, or I'm having my own practice. And if I can't hop in the shower, and I learned this one from you, I wash my hands.
Yes. Washing hands has been something that has been so helpful for me, because you're right. You can't always jump in a shower, but even on an airplane, you can wash your hands. You can let them over, and it makes such a difference. I know that for me, one of the things for integration that I have done that has been really helpful, especially when I start to feel like I just am moving right back into my mind, have a lot of thoughts going on, and I just know that I need to be integrating in physically so much more. And I also use this when I have emotions come up that I am not sure what they're trying to tell me. And I'm sometimes not even sure what the label is for the emotion. I just know that it's there, and that I might feel a little queasy or something isn't quite right. But to pick up a rock, a stone, something that has weight to it, and to be able to hold that, and just to be able to have a conversation with it. Now, the rock is not anger. The rock is not queasy, but the rock for me symbolizes that I'm having a conversation with something outside of myself, because I am not. Do I experience suffering? Yes. But am I suffering? No. There's a difference between that, right? There's the emotion of it and the person that I am. And so coming to that place of being able to say, okay, I'm feeling these really hard emotions and I need to hear what the message is. And so can you talk to me? And so I begin this conversation with whatever it happens to be, about what is it that you're trying to tell me. And so often, whatever the emotion is, don't try that, this fear-based, don't do this, or don't. So for me, so often when I sit to have that conversation, what it's trying to tell me is, I just want you to be safe. Just be discerning before you make this phone call, or before you reach out to this person, or before you do whatever, right? And so coming to that and hearing that message for me is so much more empowering than the, oh, I'm concerned about that, or I feel these anxious feelings, or the stomach is doing the flip-floppy kind of thing. If I can start to find the verbiage that goes along with that, that can be so helpful for me in terms of being able to move forward with those emotions.
I love that you say I'm experiencing X. I use that a lot with my clients.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my clients experience anxiety, but before they come and we have a conversation, it's like, I have anxiety, I have depression, I'm anxious. And yeah, if you talk like that, right, you're going to be anxious and depressed. And giving them that tool of literally that word, I am experiencing, it just takes the pressure and the weight off of it. And I love that you hold a rock. I will do those types of questions, but I'll just write them in a journal and then just free flow write. And I feel like sometimes I'm more tapped in than others, but sometimes I'm like, I'll write down an answer and I'm like, oh, wow, that's okay, great. We'll do that.
Yes. And I think the other thing about coming to these understandings about emotions, I have a sister who's a double board certified physician. And years ago, when we were talking about emotion, she had done some research on it. And she said, Sarah, that no matter what emotion that you are feeling, scientists have come to discover that you cannot feel that emotion for more than 15 minutes. My instant response was, I disagree. I can be angry and she said, hold on. You can't hold that emotion at that level. It begins to change. It moves. It begins to. So if we are coming back to the breath, if we are taking breaths in and allowing that and allowing the oxygen to do what it's supposed to do, and then we are breathing out that which we no longer are using, yet the plants and the trees need it, that is a form of, this is going to be hard for some people, but that's a form of dying, right? The breath has died. It's done its work. And now I'm releasing it. I have to release it so that my lungs can now take in fresh air, this newness that's coming in. So this flow of what is letting go is making space then for things that are going to come back in. And so those are just some pieces that for me have been really important in terms of feeling and allowing my hands to get super wet, just, anxious or whatever the feeling happens to be, and to know that I don't have to do something about it. I can actually sit and feel that. And if I need to, and I've done this before, I've put a timer on for 15 minutes and thought, okay, let's see if the scientists are true or not, if it's real.
Yeah.
So, but the other side of this also for me is that those beautiful emotions of joy and the intensity of those kinds of things, they are also ones that can't be sustained for more than 15 minutes in that particular way. They need to be encouraged. They need to be putting wood on the fire, right? They need to be kindled along the way as well. And so for me, taking pictures or writing something down as memory markers of on these days at these spaces that I have felt these ways has been so powerful for me. Friend, I'd love for you to have the last word on any other thoughts that you'd like to share on our time together.
Oh, that's a big general question. I love what you said about everything. Literally the last few minutes of everything that you were saying, I'm like, my heart is like, yes, keep going, keep talking, keep speaking. I love listening to this. But as far as anything that I want to share, I feel like that's a loaded question, but not at the same time. So what just came forward is for anybody who's wondering if how to be connected or connected, if they have the capabilities to connect, what just came forward is just remind everybody that they have the opportunity and the capacity to connect to themselves. And it's not a challenging practice. It's quite simple, but it's just about sitting with yourself and acknowledging your feelings and your emotions and not silencing yourself. Because I think I did that for a very, very, very long time. And yeah, that's what came through.
Haley, that is so powerful. And I'm just so grateful. Thank you for taking the time for this conversation. And
absolutely.
Yes. And we will talk soon. I just want to thank everybody for staying to the very, very end. The things that you have heard have been so powerful, and I'm so grateful that you are here. Know that your life makes a difference, that you are impacting other people, and I'm just so grateful for that. See you next time.